these aren't the only 5 by any means, right? Happy 5 Fact Friday. 5 Fact Friday. I'm Charlie Lambden, and it is 5 Fact. Good morning and happy Friday to everyone from a sunny Tolworth in Surrey, and from my hotel room. So I'm on a mobile internet connection, so apologies in advance if the connection glitches. And I don't know what the sound is like, and nothing's looking quite right for the setup. Anyway, here I am. I think you can see me. Can you see me and hear me? Can anyone just give me a thumbs up and tell me you can see me and hear me okay? Cerberus the Defender, hi there. Hi Nima. Someone just give me a thumbs up you can hear me. Just want to make sure everything's okay. Now, while we wait for someone to tell me you can actually hear me, no one has yet. This is an article from the Daily Express from 2022. And at the end of 5 Fact Friday, hi Italo, thank you. At the end of 5 Fact Friday, I'm going to go back to that 2022 article and have a look at that map that I've used on the thumbnail that shows the house price crash forecast mapped. So you'll see that in the thumbnail part of it. I'll have a look at that at the end because it's interesting to look back and see. These were forecasts by Capital Economics. And they got some areas spot on and other areas not so much, but the national average hides it. But anyway, let's get on with the first fact. So 5 Fact Friday is my weekly video where I tell you the 5 or more, there are 6 today, things that are newly reported facts that have come out in the last 7 days that you can verify for yourself. The link is below in the description. That I think are significant for the housing market. One more thing before we get started is that those of you who've been following my channel since 2022 will know that I became somewhat notorious for my 35% house price fall expectation, not a prediction, expectation. And there is a borough in the country where that has now happened. Now, I'm not... people are saying, Charlie, when are you going to backpedal and come away from that? They're never going to come down 35%. Well, some areas already have, and some areas may not never ever get there. But the purpose of saying it is to try and point out to people that buying a home, whilst a definitely worthwhile thing to do, is no longer the financial no-brainer that it did used to be. Right? It definitely did used to be a financial no-brainer. There's no question about that. I'm on 2 different internet connections, and the other one has actually crashed. So one moment while I try and get that back up. Otherwise, I can't share my screen with you. So this is the point. People think, Charlie, why are you so doomy and gloomy? Why are you trying to put people off buying a house? I'm not. I'm genuinely not. I want everyone who wants to own a home to own one. That would be absolutely fantastic. I just don't want people to overpay, and I don't want people to buy because they think it's a safe financial decision when it isn't. Okay, so that's my position. I just want everyone to have a home. I want everyone to be able to move home when they want to move home. I've got to just bring up this, get this back on the screen again. There we go. Sorry, I've just got a few extra challenges today. So fact number 1, let's get into fact number 1. The Financial Conduct Authority sets out steps to support home ownership. Now, this was actually published by the FCA a couple of weeks ago, but was only reported last week. And the links to all of these stories are below. I recommend you go and look at them. But let's just get to the summary, right? So what they're saying that the Financial Conduct Authority wants to do is it wants to remind lenders of the flexibility provided in our interest rate stress testing rule. Okay, I don't think lenders need reminding about that, do they? But they clearly do. Later this month, so we're in March, they're working with experts, including from the mortgage sector, to explore how smart data, as opposed to stupid data, can enhance mortgage products and services. In May, they're going to consult on proposals to make it easier for consumers to remortgage. And in June, they're going to launch a public discussion on the future of the mortgage market, including consideration of risk appetite and responsible risk taking, alternative affordability testing. It's like alternative truth, isn't it? And product innovation, lending into later life and consumer information needs, all of which is code for reduce the restrictions, make it easier for lenders to lend home buyers more money. It's worth pointing out to everyone that the reason that these restrictions were put in place was because lax lending is what led to the house price crash last time round. So that's fact number one. FCA laying the groundwork for easier mortgage lending. Risky. I do think there are places that it could be improved. I do think there are opportunities to make sensible lending easier for a lot of people who aren't high risk. Okay, there's definitely room for people to borrow money to buy a home on sensible terms where they're currently not able to do that. That I agree with. But simply loosening lending restrictions for everyone is dangerous. So let's see what they come up with. Okay, fact number two, the RICS came out with its monthly UK residential market survey this week. Now, this survey was carried out around 200 surveyor agents around the country. This will be due every month. The link to this PDF is below. You can go and see the actual survey questions that are asked. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we've got too much to get through, but they are showing that the sales market activity softens slightly over the month. And that was a month ago, right? And it's continued to soften since then based on the conversations I've been having, mostly because of things being overpriced, as well as new buyer inquiries dropping now that the stamp duty deadline is just weeks away. So new buyer inquiries and agreed sales turned mildly negative. House prices still rising at the national level, including Northern Ireland and Scotland, but momentum appears to be moderating. It's important to point out that without Northern Ireland and Scotland pulling it up, England and Wales at the national level would be and are going down. Near-term expectations point to further gentle softening in sales market activity ahead. It's like, just whisper it. It's gentle and it's just soft. I always find it interesting the language that they use in these situations. Okay, what is worth looking at for your individual situation is these sales market charts, where they break down regional prices over the past 3 months, regional new buyer inquiries over the past month, regional new vendor instructions over the past month, etc. So those are worth looking at. And you can see here, this is the one, it's the new buyer inquiries, right? That is not down everywhere. So East Anglia, they were surprisingly up. Southwest slightly up. Northwest slightly up. Scotland and Northern Ireland slightly up. But everywhere else down and quite strongly down. So Wales really badly down and London really badly down. And one of the comments we'll come on to later, one of the 5 facts this week is how Bloomberg did a report on the back of the RICS report that London house prices are expected to fall the furthest. Now, many of you will have seen the news this morning. The monthly GDP figures are out, and January's GDP, it's estimated, because that's all we can get from the ONS these days is an estimate. They are the Office for National Statistics, but it's always a rough guess. And the best they can come up with is it fell by 0.1% in January 2025, mainly caused by a fall in the production sector. Now, that's a surprise. Well, apparently it's a surprise to lots of people in the media. It's not a surprise to anyone in the real world looking at the budget measures that were put in place. And again, why is this relevant to you? Because if you are buying and you're contemplating whether or not you think house prices are going to go up or down, and whether or not that affects your decision to purchase, or perhaps it affects your offer price, that's why it's worth being aware of what's happening in the economy. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. Now, yesterday, you will have heard it was headline news. Keir Starmer to abolish the NHS England and bring health under democratic control, but with 9,500 jobs cut. Now, the real significance of this is not just the awful news for those 9,000 people that they're getting 9,000 jobs cut, but it's the first really big public sector job cut announcement. And I think it's setting the stage for more. One of the reasons being is that they've got to find more cuts. Otherwise, Rachel Reeves is going to break her own fiscal rules because, as the GDP figures show, growth is failing to materialize. It's weird that when you stand on the throats of people who are responsible for growth and expect them to breathe, and they go, I can't breathe, don't expect there to be growth. As in increasing taxes on jobs, increasing taxes on the people who create jobs and prosperity. I'm not going to get started, otherwise I'll turn into a rant. I don't want to have a rant. But that's a very, very big public sector job cut. And I think it should send a little bit of a warning shot across the public sector who felt that their jobs are perhaps safe forever. Alex Gramwater, Housing Stig, has been saying for a long time they're going to have to make massive public sector job cuts. They're going to use AI as the excuse. And they are. It's exactly what's happening. Right, next up, the Bloomberg put an article out yesterday on the back of the RICS survey saying London to suffer the UK's worst drop in house prices, surveyors predict. London is expected to record the largest drop in house prices in the UK in the near term, according to property agents, as the capital is disproportionately hit by economic uncertainty and higher taxes. The RICS indicator of new buyer inquiries across the country weakened to its lowest level since November 2023. Property surveyors also reported a fall in agreed home sales in February. The picture is even bleaker in London. The capital experienced the worst dip in property transactions and one of the largest falls in demand across all UK regions. Agents expect London home values to drop over the next 3 months more than anywhere else across the country. Okay. So that's fact number, what are we on now? That's like fact number 5. And it brings me on to fact number 6, about the 35% house price falls. Do I still think house prices are going to fall 35% from peak to trough nominal across the country? Excluding Scotland and Northern Ireland, and I've always excluded those guys. So I may have occasionally said the UK when I meant England and Wales, and I'm not moving the goalposts. I've always said I've only got insight into England and Wales through my Best Agent platform. Okay. I think the slide has a long way to go. There hasn't been a crash. There has been a slide, especially at the higher values, if not so much at first-time buyer levels. And here are some ONS stats that back this up. So this is from an X account called UK Property Insight, who replied to me yesterday with this. This is ONS data on the boroughs, the boroughs in England and Wales with the biggest house price falls. And there you have, top of the list, Kensington and Chelsea, who've now seen a 35.41% fall in the average house price in that borough. And in case you think that's a massive outlier, well, no, City of Westminster 28%, City of London 22%. Then we get out of London, so Hastings has got the biggest drops at 11%, Wandsworth 11%, Eastbourne 11%, Tower Hamlets just under 11%, Hammersmith Fulham. And then we get to Devon. This is Torridge, 10% down, which is Devon. North Devon, 8% down. And Mid Devon, 7.6% down. And Torbay, 7.6% down. So Devon's had a shocker, as have some of those London boroughs. Now, this is a very small proportion of the whole country. So I'm not trying to say, oh, look at this, the whole country is doing it. And it's not. And this is also lagged data because the ONS uses land registry completion data, which is severely lagged. But I'm putting it out there to remind, especially those of you who back in 2022 laughed at the possibility that anywhere in the country could see house price falls that much. You remember? You remember who you are? I doubt you guys are still watching my channel, but a lot of you have been watching me since 2022. When I first said in February 2022, when the market was still going up, I said, I've just seen the data that suggests to me that we're going to see the top in 2022 and prices are going to start to come down. That video is still on my channel. So, and again, these are the averages for each borough. So in Kensington and Chelsea, there will be some properties that have had bigger falls than that at the higher end, and others that have had lower falls than that. And in Hastings, where it's 11.8% falls, there will be places in Hastings or property types that have had 15% falls and some that have only had 5% falls. Remember that, right? So don't look at this and think, oh, let's apply that to my house value, because it depends whether it's a flat or a semi or a terraced or a detached house and what's happening in those boroughs. But I just want people to accept the fact that it is not impossible to see house prices fall to these kind of levels in some places. Now, do we think that we're still going to see falls? Well, that's what the RICS is very reluctant to admit that, but that's what they are reporting. I'm actually holding back and being quite reserved and quite muted with my opinion on what's going to happen this year. I don't think I don't think house prices ever crash like stock markets crash. And by the way, that's other news, right? The US stock market is down 10% in the last week or two, I think it is. I mean, they're now accepting that is a correction. Gold has now broken $3,000 an ounce, which is a record. Bitcoin's had a shocker. So gold has outperformed Bitcoin like dramatically. Because Bitcoin, guys, I hold Bitcoin, I have some, but it doesn't have any intrinsic value. Not in the same way gold does. And so therefore it is 100% sentiment. You can make a lot of money off it. I'm not saying it is a still worthwhile thing to hold in your diverse portfolio of stuff to hold, but don't ever pretend it's anything other than a sentiment index. Sorry, that's going off on a tangent. Now, to me, what's more important than prices is transactions, because transactions are social mobility, the ability of people to move on in life. People who need to sell and want to sell and can't sell, it's holding back their life. People who want to buy and can't buy, it's holding back their life. And the number one biggest cause of that problem at the moment is the massive expectation gap between asking prices and what buyers are willing to pay. And I hope that some of the data in this video today, if you're a seller clinging on to what you think your house is worth, but you've got no viewings and no offers, that you might come to terms sooner rather than later with the very unpleasant reality. I mean, I don't think there's any one reason why so many houses are so overpriced. I think there are a list of reasons. I think the three biggest contributing factors are this. Number one, the relentless week after week compounding of guff house price data in the media nationally, right? And a bias displayed in the media towards shouting about price increases rather than decreases, and the ONS overstating house price growth. I mean, their own numbers, they're literally lying with their own numbers again. If we compare this unrevised apple with this revised orange, then it says 4.6% growth. No, even Rightmove is saying only 1.3% growth. The ONS is making stuff look very silly by making that false comparison. The ONS's numbers actually show 2.3% growth, but that is 2.3% across all four nations of the UK. It's an average, and it's an average that they suddenly revised down by 7% overnight. In my view, undermining the credibility of the index. The only accuracy you can get from the ONS and the Land Registry is individual actual sold prices. Everything else is manipulated, perhaps with good intentions or not, doesn't matter. But every other bit of data we get out of the land registry and the ONS is an index. It's mixed, adjusted, and weighted. And I'm not saying that there's anything intentional happening there. And they are trying to give out useful information. I'm just saying that it isn't reliable. So the best thing to do is to look at all of the indices, remember all of their flaws and how they're all differently made up. And the best case scenario, if you look at all of them, is that the average house price across the UK has gone up in the region of 2% nominal in the last 12 months. And that's with Northern Ireland doing 7% up, Scotland doing 4 or 5, I think it is. So England and Wales not doing anywhere near that 2% average. And that's before you apply inflation, which is currently 3.9% CPIH, meaning that even with those figures, it's going down. Now, if you own a home above the average value, you're more likely to see even worse performance than that. Another thing that didn't make my 5 Fact Friday this week was that Savills reported their record results. They made £1 billion turnover. They're great. They're happy. They've got big profits, despite the fact that they, in their new homes division, sold 20% fewer homes than this time than the last year, and that their income from residential transactions is down. So I am the biggest fan of more people moving. I'm hoping that by presenting the truth every week about what's really happening, it will help bring about more transactions as more people get more realistic about the market. So do we have any questions? Hi Lee Martin, hi Andrew Dennis, Susie Lindsay, hi guys, Michelle, Jim Bob. Anyone got any questions about anything that I've said? And if you're watching on X, and there are loads of you watching, there are more of you watching on X live than there are on YouTube. Say hi, ask me questions. Everyone commenting on here is on YouTube. Rich Cook, gold prices have gone nuts. Yes. Gold is up nearly 50% just over a year. Wow, didn't know that. Jill Hayes. Yeah, houses back in the market. Yeah, it's basically. Andrew Dennis says, I'm in Suffolk Coast. It's bad. No London buyers. Yeah, Lee Marsden says, we don't get millionaires buying up the streets and keeping them empty, unlike London. I think I've actually lost. Yeah, the original Manchester says global house prices are decreasing. I think you might be right. Let's just stop sharing that now. All right, guys. So that is 5 Fact Friday for this week. What does this mean for you if you're buying and if you're selling? If you're buying, if you found a home you want to live in and it's within your reach financially and you're not overextending yourself to get it and you're planning to live there for a long time, definitely still buy so that you have a home. Do not expect it to make you any money, and don't forget to factor in the maintenance costs of between 0.5% to 1% a year of its value. Won't be that much every year, but in 10 years, you'll have some quite big bills on that house, right? You'll have to be paying all the maintenance costs that landlords normally have to pay. So don't just go, how much is my rent? How much is my mortgage payment? That's what it costs. No. And yes, you get capital appreciation. Well, not as much anymore, because in real terms, houses aren't even appreciating. They're going up slower than inflation. But if you want to buy and use something, there will be maintenance costs, wear and tear. That's what happens. So it's just people are really struggling to let go of the dream that owning a home is just free money. You can live there, and as long as you pay the mortgage, it goes up and up and up in value. And yes, there have been a couple of generations who've done that and who've made a lot of money out of their home. But The number of people who got their home on the market with an asking price of around about 600,000, where actually it's literally more like 450,000, but they cannot come to terms with it, is large. It's significant. And 450 to 600, 450,000 is 50% above the UK's average, more than that, in fact. But if that's you, if you're the seller of that property and you've put your house on the market at an asking price of 600,000, as someone recently contacted me, as a seller recently said, at some point you must at least have believed, even temporarily, wow, when we sell, we're going to have all this extra equity, all this extra capital. And so it's human nature, it's natural to start spending it in your head and going, well, okay, we'll be able to live there, we'll be able to do this, we'll do that. And then you have to come to terms with the horrible, sobering, down to earth of the bump reality. Like, oh, maybe it's 550. Oh, maybe it's 500. Oh, it's not even 500. We can't even get views at 500. Oh, God, maybe it's 450. Actually, we would have got 450 if we put it on for 450 originally. Now we're only going to get 425 because we've been on the market, chasing the market down for a year, looking like we're desperate and looking like no one wants to buy our house. So had we priced sensibly to start with, we might have got 450, maybe even 460. Now we're going to get 420 or 430. So the mistake that everyone makes when they think, oh, I'll pop it on the market, yeah, just to see what happens. Let's fly a kite. Let's just test the market. If you ever hear an agent say to you, we can test the market at this price, or we'll fly a kite, just show them the door immediately. I'm not exaggerating. If an agent sitting in your living room uses the words test the market at this price, they are knowingly lying to you about what your house is worth. And they are knowingly putting you in a position where it's going to be harder to sell and take longer, because if you have to do a public price drop, you automatically fall into the much harder to sell category. And someone else pointed this out to me on X this week. They made a very good observation, which is that buyers, when preparing to or trying to buy a house, do endless amounts of research, so much research. And yet sellers appear to go, I reckon it's worth about 700 grand. That's all right, let's put on for that. And that's the end of their research. Because if sellers did any research, any real research, they would quickly realize, oh, we're being optimistic, aren't we? No, we've got to drop the price. So remember, if you're a seller now, remember how much research you did when you were a buyer. And now ask yourself, why aren't you doing the same amount of research as a seller? Is it because deep down inside you don't really want to know the truth? But actually, isn't it better to know the truth so you can move on with your life, or decide not to move? Anyone got any thoughts on all that? Andrew Dennis says, if you value your house realistically to sell, the value could be 2016 or 2018 price or worse. Yep, I agree. That's another point Jill Hayes makes very well. So many sellers who have not maintained their homes well, still expecting top dollar. That's true. Steph May says, what if that drop, 600 down to 450, would put you into negative equity? Well, that to be in negative equity with those numbers would mean that you had a mortgage still outstanding of more than 450,000. And that means that if your house is worth less than your outstanding mortgage balance, you are in negative equity, and your choices become restricted. And this is exactly why I've been trying to warn people for so long. Do not overpay. Buy a home to live in it, but do not overpay. And if you have ended up in negative equity, it's a cold, stark mathematical fact that you did overpay. And no one likes to admit it. No one comes out and goes, hey, I overpaid. People have come to me privately and said that and gone, I overpaid. I've now realized I overpaid. And this is all I'm trying to get people to stop doing. Stop overpaying, right? And how does overpaying happen? When enough people persuade you that it isn't overpaying. When the government and the ONS says, house prices have gone up 4.6% in the last year. And you think, the ONS said it, maybe it's true. And estate agents tell you, yeah, we've got lots of other interest and everyone's bidding, and if you like it, you want it, you better bid or you won't get it. And then you've got all the generations of your family going, you can't go wrong, you can't go wrong, you can't go wrong. Just buy it, you'll be fine. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in negative equity who will, most of whom will just ride it out, won't be able to sell. They will either live in it and sublet a room if they can't afford the mortgage payment, or they will move out and rent it out if they have to. Perhaps if it's a bigger house than they need. I got a story just this week of someone saying that their landlord has kicked them out of their £1.3 million house that they're renting because the landlord can no longer keep up the mortgage repayments on it because their interest rate's gone up. I think 2025 is going to be a really rough market, and I think the slide is going to continue in 2026. You might be the first time I watch this going, Charlie, what are you talking about? I've been watching the market for the last 2 years while I've been saving my deposit, and nothing's going down, it's all going up. Well, how do you know? Do you have access to actual sold prices? Double check. New home builders somehow get away with not reporting their actual purchase prices to the land registry and having it published for 2 years. It's nuts how long some of them delay it till it actually goes on to land registry. And the new homes builders are the worst because new home builders are the only sellers who are selling only to make profit, right? Their pure motivation is profit. And so they're in business, that's fine. It's not a criticism of it, right? That's what all businesses do, and that's what all businesses should do. You should always sell for the best price the market will pay for your product or your service, right? But understand that when you're buying a new build, you will be up against much, much harder negotiation, especially if you're dealing directly with the home seller themselves, the new build company, and dealing with their sales reps, than you will if you're buying a second home through an agent, because the agent themselves do not care about the seller's profit. They just care about getting the house sold at whatever the market will pay. Their job is to get them. An estate agent's job is slightly different from a salesperson in a new home development, right? The salesperson in the new home development is targeted and commissioned on the profit that they're making, whereas an agent is just targeted on the transaction happening. And if you're buying new build, your risks of being in negative equity are much higher because pretty much immediately you buy it, the value of it is now 5 to 10% less than you paid. When the market's rising strongly, that's not necessarily a big issue. And if you're planning to stay in that new home for a very long time, it's not necessarily a big issue. But if you're thinking of moving within 5 years and you buy a new home with a 95% mortgage, you forget it. Unless we're in boom territory, you're going to be in negative equity 5 years time. And there are plenty of people who've bought flats in London within the last 5 years who are now in negative equity and can't sell them. Do we have any more questions? John HS on YouTube says it feels very pre-2008 in the market. Sellers are misinformed and buyers are hesitant to commit when so much is becoming increasingly uncertain. And don't forget also, we've got the highest stock levels for 10 years. And what's going to happen in April? Is that going to go up or down? It's going to go up because of all the sellers who are not paying attention going, oh, it's the spring. Let's wait for the spring bounce. It's going to be the spring splat. Yeah, Clayton Jane said, I heard only yesterday a bungalow sold at 475 from an asking price of 600k. Just completed. 2 agents said 600 and 1 agent said 525. So even the 525 agent was overvaluing by about 10%. Aphex Triplet says, there's so much rhetoric in this channel. Yes. What kind of rhetoric? What do you mean? The whole idea of 5 Fact Fridays, and I've backed it all up with data and facts, and you can go to the links and look it up. So, what's your point? Are you someone who's, are you perhaps, I'm just guessing here, a seller who's just, no, it's worth 600,000. Don't tell me it's 450. Yeah, they should scrap stamp duty. They should scrap stamp duty. Guys, thanks very much for watching. Have a fantastic weekend. There's a link below to my link tree that's got links to all the different ways in which I can help you. Whether you are buying or selling, the number one tip is to be prepared. Have everything ready in advance. Get your conveyancer signed up if you're a seller before you choose your agent. Choose a conveyancer. If you want to talk to my guys, you can do it there. Same with your finances. Have your finances lined up before you talk to agents. Talk to my guys there. And if you're, don't forget, first-time buyers, to use my offer email template. Just search MHWC offer email template. It's also on my link tree, link below, where you will see that the offer template includes a suggestion of offering to purchase the search pack on the property as soon as your offer is accepted to speed up the transaction and improve the chance of the seller accepting your. Oh, I forgot. We've got one more thing to do. Completely forgot about it. To go through this 2022 article that I mentioned at the beginning. Okay, this is really interesting. Is really interesting. So this is a Daily Express article from August 2022. House price crash mapped. 12% wiped out in new forecast. How is your area impacted? And they go around and talk about it. And it's analysis firm Capital Economics. Suggests that in the next 2 years, across the country, prices will slump by around 7%, wiping out any expected growth in the market from 2022. Areas with the most expensive properties will fare the worst in the contraction. Now, they've got a map here. I'll get it on the screen. There's a bigger version of it here. There we are. And let's get it larger. Right. So on this map, they said in 2022 that Scotland house prices were going to fall 5% in the next 2 years. That has not happened, to my knowledge. I don't have much insight on Scotland and Northern Ireland, but they also forecast Scotland and Northern Ireland to both fall 5%. Well, that definitely was wrong. Both of those areas have gone up in price in the last 2 years, so they got that part wrong. The northeast and northwest, the yellow areas, all around about 4%. Wales 3.5%. They got Wales wrong. Wales has come down worse than that. But here down in the south, look, east of England 6.5%. London 12% down. Well, some areas of London, as I showed you, are 35% down. Southeast down 9%. Southwest down 6.5%. Well, that Devon one I showed you a little bit earlier in this video, that Devon is down between 7 and 12%. And that's ONS figures. So to those of you who've been watching my channel a long time, please now accept the fact that house prices can and do fall even when the population is rising. Okay, because it's not so much to do with supply and demand in terms of how many people versus how many houses. It's to do with how much money people have got, how much they can afford. And because of interest rates going up and rents going up and taxes going up and inflation going up, everyone's got less money. And so buyers, even with mortgages, are being able to afford less. And with less funded demand, the offers on properties are lower. And with more unsold supply, let's just have a look at that. All right, this is my website, Best Agent. And this shows you, this is just England, right? We'll have a quick look at Wales as well. Out of the 570,000 properties total on the market in England, 446,000, this is as of last week, right, are for sale. And only 123,000 are under offer. Okay. And if we look at Wales, let's go into Wales. Again, it's 18,000 properties for sale, unsold, versus 4,000 under offer. And both the median and average prices coming down. Those are just asking prices, but there's a lot of unsold stock, and the amount of unsold stock is just increasing and is likely to increase in the spring. So Q2, I'm expecting, just expecting, this is not a fact, but I'm expecting, based on my work with estate agency CRM systems, the best agent data, conversations I'm having with agents, I'm expecting stock levels to climb. So more and more people bring their house to the market. 90% of those people will come on at too high a price because they will fall for estate agent overvaluing. And buyer demand is going to continue to get worse because in April, a whole range of tax rises bite. Minimum wage goes up in April as well, but the effect of that are going to be dwarfed by the tax rises, in particular the employers' national insurance tax rises that's going to hit jobs. So unemployment is going to rise. Wage growth is going to stall. The economy is going to struggle. More houses are coming onto the market. There are fewer buyers as buyer demand gets less because of the stamp duty going up. So add all those things together. There is no, like, our interest rates about to fall. No, not. There's no good reason to think interest rates are going to fall. Inflation's going back up. I mean, no matter what metric you look at, unless you're a first-time buyer, unless you are a minimum wage employee who's about to get a 12% pay rise in April, you might be in a stronger position to buy, but you're pretty much the only people who are. And there aren't enough of you guys to help with buying all of the overpriced, expensive houses in the market that are sitting there unsold and continuing to come down. And I really, really do feel for home sellers who have genuinely looked around, done what they think is adequate research, and priced realistically, and have still had nothing but tumbleweed. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, and it's going to continue to get worse for the foreseeable future. Just look at Reeves and the economy. She's about to do another budget, and in that budget, it is expected by some that, because she's got no choice unless she breaks her own rules. If she breaks her own fiscal rules, she's going to have to resign, I think. If she breaks them and doesn't resign, that would be unbelievable. But the economy has not performed in line with expectations or OBR forecasts. So she's got to either raise taxes and make public service cuts. What's that going to do for the housing market? See my point? It just gets worse and worse in 2025, I'm afraid, in terms of transactions, because more and more sellers trying to sell, less and less buyers trying to buy, worsening economic conditions. It all feels, in housing market context, quite crashy. Anyway, guys, just remember, if you are a seller, if you price well, you will always sell. If you are prepared to accept what the market says your home is worth, what the market will pay, you will sell, right? So are you a seller who goes, yes, I'm willing to accept the fact that the market decides the price of my house? Or are you a seller who goes, well, we spent £25,000 on that kitchen, so it's definitely worth this much money? That is not empirical evidence about your house's value, right? What you've got to ask yourself is, what have I seen? What evidence have I seen locally that supports my view on what the house is worth? You cannot include in that, well, the estate agent said, right? You cannot include estate agency, and they're not even valuations, right? Valuations have to be paid for by a professional. When an agent comes around and gives you an estimate of a market appraisal for your house, that is not a valuation. It's not something, that is not evidence you can rely on. Oh, well, the ONS said house prices have gone up 4.6%. That's debunked. It was 2%, and that's the national average. Take out Scotland and England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's even lower, and then work out whether your house is the flat or the semi or the terrace or the detached, and look at what those are doing. What actual evidence do you have to support your perspective of what your house will sell for? Don't look at other local asking prices. Don't go, well, look at all the other houses on the street are on for 600 grand, so it must be right. Yeah, but none of them are selling, and that's the clue. You have to look at the asking prices of the ones that are selling and probably factor another 5 to 10% drop below that to see where you should be ballpark pitching the launch price of your home. And if you're an agent watching this and you've got a seller in front of you and you're trying to talk them into going with you, but their expectations are unrealistic, the question I would ask them is, what information have you seen that gives you confidence in your price expectation? Of course, if they haven't got it, I mean, either they're going to go, get out of my house because you just made me feel stupid, in which case they're just being unrealistic and you won't be able to sell the house anyway, and you're better off without them. Or they're going to go, oh, yeah, maybe that's a point. Maybe actually it is just optimism and hope. And the reason I say this, guys, is I don't want to rub anyone's nose in anything. I want to help sellers minimize the loss on the home value by selling sooner by pricing at the market price, rather than waiting and hoping for a spring bounce that ain't going to happen. Now, what, if anything, could turn this around? If the government announces a brand new Help to Buy scheme in the budget, I have no idea if they're going to or not. I severely hope that they don't. It would be a terrible mistake. That could change things, but it'll only change things for new house builders. I don't think it'll help you if you are selling your existing home. Too much rambling, gotta go. It's been great as ever. Thank you everyone for watching. Aaron Clark says, Charlie, love your honest feedback. Thank you very much. Adam Biro says, happy 5 Fact Friday, Charlie. Thank you. Happy Friday to you guys. Wow. Lav in Suffolk says, I live in Lavenham, Suffolk, which is quite desirable. However, I am seeing properties not selling or reducing on average 10 to 20%. This is a trend I've seen for some time and shows no sign of letting up. Oh my God. Greg on YouTube says, going through probate now. Father had house overvalued and on the market for 500,000. It's now under offer at 365. That's 135 grand or 27% lower than the initial asking price. 27%. Thank you, Greg, for sharing that. That's interesting. Right, definitely going now. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye. Remember, if you're buying, don't overpay. And if you're